Well, it looks like I have to eat my hat. Wait a minute, it's not the 1930s. I don't have a hat. So Adepticon was last week, and with it came some of the biggest, best news ever for Warhammer. It's incredibly seismic. And yes, I was correct. Along with half the planet, there is indeed a new edition of Warhammer 40k. We are entering the world of 10th edition Warhammer. This is massive. But what's even bigger than simply just a new edition is the Games Workshop finally seem to be actually listening. Huzzah! It seriously appears to me like they might be changing for the better. I'm really excited. But there's a lot more to talk about than just 10th edition. So let's get into it all. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Because somebody that we thought was long dead is actually still around. No, not you, Kissinger. Yeah, thank you. Okay, this guy. Yes, this is indeed Lionel Johnson, the gay poet, and he is in Warhammer 40k. Finally. Sorry. The Dark Angel one. Yeah, he wrote Dark Angel. But sorry, I'm being informed right now that he's some sort of pre-mark. Anyway, forget about that. It's a really sweet model. Now look, I've done a whole video on this. I'm not like the biggest fan of pre-marks returning, but I think this model looks pretty swell. I really like the vibe of it. It looks really cool. It's a very impressive model. The sculpting is excellent. The armor looks really cool, and the head options are positively fantastic. My favorite one is the MF Doom helmet. The only thing is, I'm not the biggest fan of the shield, which apparently is like the shield of the Emperor. Could have done without it. I'm not the biggest fan of the little Jawas either. I don't know if that's like a Dark Angel thing, but I have no idea what the hell they are. But overall, model looks great. I'm glad that people are getting something that they're going to be really excited about. Personally, these giant named character models aren't really for me, and if I were playing Space Marines, I would buy this model because it looks really cool, and then just rename it something thematically appropriate like Oscar Wilday or something. As always, I live in fear of the price. There are new Space Marine and Tyranid models as well. There are new Terminator models. That's really exciting. And importantly, they're just rescaled. They're not Primaris Marines, which is a little bit of a surprise to me because I genuinely thought they were going to get rid of Firstborn. There is a very cynical take I could have right now, but you know the way Primaris probably should have just been resized Firstborn, but instead they did them all like Primaris and made a lore reason? Do you know the way nostalgia's really in with corporations right now? Do you reckon they're gonna start releasing Firstborn remodeled to sell another new line of Space Marines? I thought that they were gonna actually get rid of the Firstborn. You know, I'm not too sure anymore. Okay, here's my hot take. I think that Firstborn are going to be re-released across the life of 10th edition along with every single other pre-mark. I think we're going to see Assault Marines. I think we're going to see new different types of Firstborn, and they're all going to be resized as well. Similarly, the new Termagant models look really cool. They've been brought into the new scaling of Warhammer and look a little bit more true scale, a little bit more realistic. I am not an unfan of this. I quite like it. There's been a bunch of hints as well to new units in the trailer for the new rules of Warhammer 40k, but you know, I'll talk about those when we see them. Moving on, and I have to talk about this, because you know I have to talk about this. Beastman in Warhammer 40k. Yes, Beastman in Warhammer 40k. This is not a drill, people. Something that I have dreamt about since 4th edition Warhammer 40k. We are finally getting what I have always wanted. It's like this entire reveal was just for me. You've got your little Beastmen and they look so beautiful, and then you've also got Votan. What are you doing here? And a bunch of terrain as well. Yes, okay, so a new kill team, 14 patrol, terrain, big massive bundle box. Look, the Beastmen look awesome in this box. I really like them, and I will have to try and figure out a way to get them separately because I really don't want to buy a massive bundle to buy the Beastmen and then also get a bunch of Votan models I don't want and a bunch of terrain that I think is extremely overpriced. As always, the terrain is exactly the same as the terrain in the last bunch of boxes. There's just some new scattered terrain, which admittedly the scattered terrain looks good, but really this is just the same product being released again. I wish the Beastman would be released separately. I know they will eventually, but yeah. Love the Beastman, hit the bundle, have no interest in dwarfs. Next up, we have the Cities of Sigmar, and oh dear God, what have they done to my boy? Okay, so we have to talk about this. This isn't the Empire. So anybody who's looking at these models and thinking, seem fine, these guys are apparently replacing these guys, and you can see the difference. One, these guys have cod pieces, and these guys have bibs. Yeah, when you see it, you just can't put it away, can ya? The models themselves look fine in a vacuum. I think they have a lot of fidelity. They're really well detailed. They do obviously look a lot closer to Bretonnian soldiers than Empire soldiers. And I think there's a good reason for this. I think it's simply the case that this new Cities of Sigmar rework, where they're getting rid of all the old Empire models and replacing them with these types of models that seem to be a little bit more religious in tone, a little bit more Sigmarite explicit, is all because they're trying to separate the design language between Age of Sigmar, which is these models, and then the new upcoming Warhammer Fantasy game, which will have these models. That makes sense to me. Honestly, I actually have no problem with that at all. It's just that I don't think I have any interest in this new Cities of Sigmar model release. I'm not the biggest fan of this vibe. I think this has killed all interest in buying new Cities of Sigmar models, which is kind of a bummer because I've got a lot of Empire models and I kind of enjoyed playing Cities of Sigmar every so often. What can I say? I just love the giant hat, giant feather, giant cock look. I'm not gonna get demonetized for that, right? I should be fine. You know what? Check out my Patreon at patreon.com/discourseminiatures. Support your favorite content creator. I actually have no problem with these new models. They're just not for me, but I think it's a good idea if you want these two different lines, the Empire and Free Cities, to be distinctive from one another, to actually make them aesthetically distinctive from one another. I think it's cool that the Free Cities are kind of getting their own vibe going forward. Plus, these models look like they might be perfect for games like Frostgrave, so, you know, have at it. And of course, there are new Lizardmen. They look great. There's not a lot more to say. I'm a fan of Lizardmen. I like lizards. I love Lustria. Love going to Lustria. Ate Vampire Coast. Not a racist. Just don't like them. I'm really happy that Lizardmen are getting a look in and getting a range refresh. They've really needed it for a really long time. When are the Skiven getting redone? Oh dear, they really need it. Please, I just want glove throwers that aren't older than me. Please. But okay. So that's all the models done. Let's talk about actually the most exciting part of everything that was announced at Adepticon, because it's not plastic that makes my heart move forward, it's hatred. Deep, overriding, cynical hatred. Let's talk about the new rules. We have a new edition of Warhammer 40k. This is genuinely extremely exciting for me. The lore of the new edition is that basically somehow the Tyranids returned. Or I guess we've just kind of remembered that they're out there. So it looks like they're setting it up that there is going to be the High Fleet Leviathan attacking the galaxy. I wonder how the Ultramarines are going to get out of this one. Probably with plot armor. This is apparently the largest High Fleet in all of history, which won't mean much whenever they all get blown up. But before we really get into all that, we need to talk about the game Warhammer 40k. Something I don't talk about very often on the channel. I don't, there's not a lot to talk about. No one likes it. Now, 10th edition is coming. And with that, Games Workshop seem to have actually listened to feedback, which, I'm gonna be honest, is very rare for them. So they mentioned explicitly that they have received feedback that Warhammer 40k is overcomplicated, and that the learning curve for new players is too steep. That is exactly true. I think that a lot of people got into Warhammer across the pandemic and then immediately bounced off the game whenever they actually went to play it. What is highlighted is that stratagems and complexity is too much, and I think that is an excellent note. Yes, there are too many stratagems. So what are Games Workshop doing? Streamline! They're gonna make this baby purr. So it looks like they're getting rid of a ton of the stratagems and they're distilling them down into just a couple. But not only that, they're also taking an absolute hatchet to the rest of the game as well. Streamlining the phases, removing force organization. The morale system is totally getting overhauled as well. Instead of units simply disappearing off the field whenever they break morale, instead we're getting a sort of half-life state where they go into this broken stage where their stats are reduced. I think I've seen this one before. No, we'll put it to one side. They've also made a huge change to data sheets as well. The stats have been reborn. Strength is tied to weapons. There's a new stat called objective control, meaning that there's something else for units to do other than just kill the opponent. And what used to be stratagems are now being put into the actual data cards of units. Yes! But the most exciting update of all, on the first day of the new edition, not only will the rules be available to download, but they will also be free. And because it's all streamlined, it's going to be so digestible and so accessible and therefore a much more playable experience. Games Workshop themselves say, even your faction and army rules now take up just a couple of pages. Oh my god, I know where I've seen this before. Games Workshop have just made one-page rules. They've just made one-page rules again. I mean, I'm not complaining. One-page rules is really fun, but it's like we've gone full circle now. And that makes sense, honestly, because one-page rules is basically streamlined Warhammer, and they're really, really popular as a result. Evidently, people enjoy playing these more streamlined games. Honestly, though, this is a bit of a surprise for me. Yes, Games Workshop say all the time that they're streamlining the game, but very rarely do they actually do that. This feels like more of a return to the older school style of play. And that's really, really, really exciting to me. Obviously, it kind of sucks for anybody who bought into the Codex system with 9th edition. As Games Workshop say, the current range of Codexes are being retired. Very sad for all the Imperial Guard players out there who literally had a Codex at the beginning of 8th and now at the end of 9th edition are being told that their Codex that's been out for like a month or two is being retired. But that's precisely the problem with the Codex system. So I'm really glad to see the Games Workshop are walking away from it and finally embracing modern wargaming. Data cards, people. Now, I'm a little bit not the biggest fan of Games Workshop kind of upselling the data cards as a separate pack. As they say, on the first day of the new edition, the rules for every data sheet, so that's the stats of every unit in Warhammer 40k, will be free to download or available to buy as convenient and portable card decks. I would prefer those data cards to come bundled in with the actual models, but you know what? The rules are free. This is a huge win. We're getting rid of codices. I'm in favor of this. Go, go, go. Yes. Excellent. I am really, really excited, guys. So I'm gonna give them this one. I'm gonna let them sell data cards. They've won me over. Here's the thing. I don't want to appear like I'm gushing in this video. That's distinctly not what this channel is about. I try to remain as objective and independent as possible on this channel. But look, I have a really big connection with Warhammer. It was the very first war game I ever played. And I am genuinely incredibly excited to be excited about Warhammer again. I was worried that I never would be, that the game would continue along this strange little path of becoming an overburdened, bloated mess every single new edition. I'm really glad to hear the Games Workshop have identified this as an actual problem, and they're focused on making the game as great as it can be. This is everything I wanted to hear. It's exactly what I've been arguing for the last 2 years. Hobbyists getting a fun game, that's all I want. I will always call it BS when I see it, but I'm excited to get my Gene Stealer cults and play them on the table. Guess I really gotta get my Space Marines painted, huh? But okay, we've held off on the penny drop for as long as possible. There is a little bit of a dark side to all of this. I hate to be this person every single time. It has to be me. I have to remind everybody during all of this hype of, you know, what we might expect in the future. But I'll tell you what, I'll try and smile when saying it. This way I can appear positive at all times, no matter what. So, a little bit of a bummer here. All of this sounds great. However, Games Workshop have kind of left a bit of a door open. They say Codexes will return in time to replace the free rules. That makes me really, really worried. Because a lot of the conversations happening right now remind me of the beginning of 8th. And don't get me wrong, the beginning of 8th was incredible. It was one of the best times in Warhammer. And I'm looking forward to potentially the best time ever in Warhammer coming up in the next few months, once we get past all this Arc of Omens stuff. Games Workshop say that in time, Codexes will return to replace the free rules. And to me, that feels like a huge misstep. I'm not against codices in theory. If they are just about lore, if they are just about cool art, if they're just about hobby stuff, I say have at it. If you want to sell your big hardback book that's for the people who are really into their factions, go for it. I don't mind that. My problem is when codices become a mandatory purchase. That is my issue. Now, I'm really happy to hear the rules are going to be free. I'm really happy to hear the data cards are going to be available. But I just want the game to stay in a space where that continues to be the case. Now, there's a little bit of hope here. This isn't like me saying it's going to get bad. I'm not saying that at all. Games Workshop do make clear that the complexity of the game won't increase. So I don't really, to be frank, know what that means. In theory, it sounds like there's not going to be new rules in these codices, that everything you need will be available for free. And if that's the case, good, awesome, sick. I'm really happy that that's the case. But otherwise, if we're 6 months into the lifespan of 10th edition and we have to return to Wahapedia, then this entire endeavor is wasted. I hope they commit to exactly what they say in this post. You will only ever need your unit datasheet, the 2 pages of rules that govern your chosen army, plus the core rules and whatever mission you're playing. To me, that sounds totally acceptable, totally playable, and totally fun. Of course, the announcement of 10th edition should be a warning to those on the season model with the Arcs of Omens. All of this stuff is going to be rendered absolutely obsolete the moment the 10th edition comes out. This is the problem with the season model. But I don't want that to color my opinion overall. I think this is a great change. I'm not going to criticize Games Workshop for potential future. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They are saying everything right now. So let's see how it goes. I'm just really excited to play Warhammer again. I really am. But even that isn't necessarily the best part either, because Games Workshop have listened. They have listened. Oh, how they have listened. Because Games Workshop have taken one of my biggest criticisms of getting into Warhammer, and it seems like they might have just addressed it. No, it's not the price, but they have made the game a bit more accessible, and they're doing that via a new combat patrol mode. Yes, when I first heard this, I raised an eyebrow and thought, don't they already have a combat patrol mode? Doesn't it just not work at all for being a playable, balanced experience? Then again, that's kind of Warhammer, innit? But it looks like they're actually taking combat patrols and really going hell for leather on trying to turn that into an intro game experience. This is one of the things the Games Workshop have really been missing out on, in my opinion. I've talked about it a lot on the channel, that there needs to be a smaller game mode where you can buy just a couple of troops, a captain, maybe a tank, and be off on your way into a game of Warhammer. Bada bing, bada boom, you got yourself a game. And this looks to be it. So, Games Workshop say, this new edition will introduce a brand new way to play the game, Combat Patrol. This version is designed to be easy to collect and easy to play. Combat Patrol pitches small preset and balanced forces against each other with the armies made out of Combat Patrol boxes. Yes! Okay, this is super duper awesome, and let me explain why. 100% one of the biggest problems of getting into Warhammer is someone asks, what will I need? And then people say, well, the standard game mode is 2,000 points, and they ask, how much will that cost? And the response is at least $500. And people then respond with, no thanks. This is a big problem. This is a huge problem in the hobby. Ask any retailer, ask anyone trying to get their friends into the game. This is a big one. Combat patrols represent a way to buy into Warhammer without overly committing to it. Yes, it is still a massive financial commitment, but it isn't the price of a new games console. The fact that Games Workshop are even talking about this is really good in my opinion, because it's clear then that they have some level of finger on the pulse this time. Again, that's not a guarantee. I can't stress enough how uniquely rare it is for Games Workshop to seem to be responding to a lot of criticisms. It's really good. What this new game mode means is that you can pick up a combat patrol, dip your toe into a new faction that you like the look of, and play them. And play actual games of Warhammer. Honest to goodness Warhammer with them. And maybe you enjoy the playstyle. Maybe you don't. But it wasn't this huge endeavor to actually get them onto the table compared to, you know, the standard 2,000 points game. I'm really excited for this. This is something that I really like. I actually have a lot of smaller Warhammer forces because I like the look of a lot of the factions, but I can't commit to ever really buying into any one. This is a great, awesome new game mode. I'm really looking forward to this. My only niggle here is that I'm a little bit skeptical of just how balanced this game mode can be, but so long as it is somewhat balanced, I think it will actually do fine. It doesn't have to be the most robust game mode ever, but you know, it's just as long as it's a little bit of fun. I genuinely prefer war games that try to be a little bit smaller and not be these massive experiences. This is basically what starter boxes for Warhammer always should have been. So this is all incredible, right? Like, a lot of this sounds really good. Well, just as I was recording this video, these models were released for sale. Yeah, that is £331 or $556, all for just 400 points gigabytes, roughly, worth of models. And that really scares me. It concerns me quite a bit because we're hearing a lot of great stuff from the design team. They're saying everything right. I think they have it exactly correct. But the rest of the company, including the pricing team, the executives, they need to get on board with this too. I hope and pray the Warhammer 40k does not fall victim to the same impulses as 8th edition Warhammer. But I'm always going to be skeptical, for sure. 10th edition might not be as transformative as we hope. We're just going to have to wait and see how this all shakes out. But I remain hopeful, and I will continue to call out BS when I see it. And I rely on patrons to make this entire channel workable. And if you want to help me create critical, independent content like this that is consumer first, then please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/discourseminiatures. There you can get ad-free content as well as bonus videos. And if you want to hear my concerns about 10th edition, especially looking back the way to how editions went in the past, then check out this video here. And as always, a huge thanks to my patrons, especially Sonic Bread and CryptoKev. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye!